And I think around 10 years ago, I was at the International Congress of Qualitative Inquiry in America. And I think I was in a session with a friend of mine, Marcela Diversi, or someone else. And the next speaker after them was another Brazilian. And it was a woman I couldn't believe in pharmacology talking about autoethnography. And my mind just was blown away by somebody who was forging in one of the main hard sciences a reflexive, self-aware, person-centered, creative awareness about their work in the world. And as I listened to this woman talk about what she had done in that pharmacology department, it sounded amazing. In the sciences, in the hotbed of randomized controlled trials, there was somebody who was with her students asking them to write about their lives, allowing them to become emotional, to become sensitized, to raise issues that were really relevant and resonated in their lives. And she was the first professor that they had seen cry. They didn't know how to respond. How is one of our teachers becoming so emotional in front of us? But this woman had created such a caring and sensitive environment that something really special grew there. And she's been doing this work for about 20 years. It's phenomenal. So it is with great pleasure that we have with us today Djenane Oliveira Rambo. I'm not sure which order you like those. We're aware of what the title says and that your work at the Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais, and that you're an educator, researcher, and a clinician worried about patients and the journey of your patients and how you can support them and how that's transformed your work. And so thank you so much for agreeing to come and give a keynote. We thought that you'd be doing it online from Brazil, and here you've taken the the opportunity to come over and speak to us in person. So please give a warm welcome to Djenane Oliveira.
Good afternoon. Just have to breathe a little bit after this introduction. Before I say anything, I want to invite you to something. Just for a moment. Imagine your body dancing. Maybe it's a slow, maybe it's a solitary sway, or a fluid duet. Your movements shaped by other partners' rhythm, breath, hesitation. That image, that sensation, is how I've come to understand my life in pharmacy. Not as a linear career path, not as a ladder or a staircase, but as a base. Prelude, the smell of alcohol and chlorhexidine, which is an antiseptic. Pharmacy smells like control. Alcohol, chlorhexidine, the sharp tang of aseptic safety, a hint of crushed acetaminophen or Tylenol rising from the back shelves. That sterile scent was the road I was trained to master. Protocols, precision, predictable outcomes. I learned to move in that road with discipline, to be responsible, accurate, vigilant. And I am all those things, don't take me wrong. I'm a clinical pharmacist. I help patients and prescribers reach therapeutic goals with scientific rigor. But I'm also something else. I'm a different kind of pharmacist. Some people call me a social pharmacist. One that believes that medicines carry more than molecules. They carry memory, meaning, stories. I am a professor too. For almost 30 years now, I have been teaching pharmacology inside an institution shaped by hierarchy and certainty. But I stayed. Not because I fit in, but because I dreamed of building something different. In that dreaming, I learned how to live in the in-between. Not quite inside the center, not quite outside the institution, creating a parallel or a marginal curriculum. I'm dancing in the margins, always initiating a new movement, always responding to, always searching for a partner. Act 1, listening to the silence, teaching in an arid landscape. Come with me back to my classroom. August 2003, the first day of my pharmaceutical care class. Students enter cautiously, unsure of what to expect. I ask them to sit in a circle. That alone is revolutionary. Their eyes widen, their posture stiffens. Circles are so unfamiliar in our faculty. Here at this pharmacy school, power moves one way, professor to students, top down, knowledge handed over like a prescription. But the circle disrupts that. Now we see each other. There is no hiding. Everyone matters. I drew that idea from bell hooks, Paulo Freire, Ira Shore, from a deep well of relational pedagogy, and from my own intuition that the curriculum needed to be broken open and rebuilt from the inside. I began with simple but radical questions. What brought you here? How are you feeling? And they answered slowly, painfully, honestly. Since I came here, I feel like I lost the sparkle in my eyes. Another one said, there is no room for a poor and black girl like me in this place. I don't know what kind of pharmacist I'm becoming, or I should become. I'm completely confused. These are not academic questions nor answers. These are cries for belonging. Their words revealed what the pharmacy curriculum tried to suppress, that learning is not just intellectual. It's emotional, it's social, it's spiritual. They showed me the violence of a system that prizes knowledge over humanity. They seem to be aspire for meaning in a context most concerned with technique. And so I did what I could. I listened. And I listened. And I started to create some space for presence. And I began, step by step, to choreograph a different kind of classroom. Reflective practices about their own experiences studying pharmacy. Writings regarding the meanings of becoming a patient care provider. Discussions on the ethical implications of changing from a drug-centered to a person-centered practitioner. Readings of patients' lived experiences. Interviews with individuals living with chronic conditions and taking medications chronically. This wasn't innovation. It was insurgency. A quiet, persistent resistance. My way of carving space for the human in a curriculum designed to flatten it. A new dance inside an old hall. Act 2, the choreography of care, circles of small revolutions. Fast forward to 2024. This is a very different kind of classroom. We are reading anthropology, illness narratives, some philosophy, not to analyze it, but to feel it. We move between theory and life, between literature and the lived. And I ask the students, What does rational use of medication mean when the patient is grieving or terrified? What if non-adherence is not a failure, but an act of resilience or even resistance? What does pharmaceutical care mean when we begin with care, not with pharmaceuticals? In those moments, we don't just study practice, we inhabit it. We become attuned to the choreography of listening, of pausing, of being moved. And I begin to wonder, did I create this course to save them or to save myself? The truth is both. Because in that space, we breathe again. In a road that disciplines feelings, we make room for emotion, uncertainty, and care. In a setting that values knowledge accumulation and regurgitation, we look deeply and rehearse the process of taking care, taking an active role in the healthcare system as a reflective practitioner with a clear mission and direction. One student told me, this course was a wake-up call, Djenane. The college teaches us how to be good technicians, but forgets we work with people and that we are people too, right? Another one wrote in an email to me, I admire your courage to create a class where we can be ourselves without fear. You remind us that people, not drugs, should be the center of our work. In these circles, we are no longer rehearsing procedures. We are rehearsing presence, and we are dancing differently. Act 3, leading, following, letting go, the role of qualitative methods. When I began teaching qualitative methods in 2004, I thought I was adding a technique to the toolbox. What I didn't know was that I was inviting a new way of knowing and a new way of being in a pharmacy school. Through ethnography, phenomenology, action research, grounded theory, our students began to see differently. They noticed silences. They read gestures. They listened with their whole bodies. In the Center for Pharmaceutical Care Studies, which I founded and continue to direct, these methods became more than research. They became flashlights. They illuminated what the clinical gaze often misses, the soft signals, the ethical tensions, and the invisible labor of caring. And something beautiful happened. Our students began to move with more compassion. They became better pharmacists, not because they memorized more, but because they attuned more. They learned that presence is a form of practice, and dancing with qualitative methods taught them this, that knowing is not always linear, that leading is more, sometimes means following, that control is not always the answer. Sometimes we must let go to feel the rhythm again. Act 4, the healing dance of AutoEthnography. I first encountered AutoEthnography, watched Tammy Spry perform. I didn't understand it. I felt. Her work moved me like a dance, raw, embodied, aching with truth. I brought it back to Brazil like a smuggled treasure. I introduced it to pharmacy education. At first, people just dismiss it. This is too personal, too emotional, not rigorous enough. But I knew what it was, liberating, restorative, revolutionary. When the pandemic hit, I taught my first AutoEthnography class. It was chaotic, online, but very intimate. Students wrote about exile, about grief, about surviving racism in clinical spaces, about caring for ill parents while studying mechanisms of actions and drug interactions. I had no idea. I didn't know my students until then. They didn't write from the outside. They wrote from the wound. AutoEthnography became a lifeline for many of us, a method of healing, of reclaiming voice, of resisting silence. Today, several of my PhD and master students are dancing with these methods. And others are joining. People from nursing, physical therapy, nutrition, medicine, and even the humanities come to my class. The classes also receive young pharmacy students. We are building a new epistemology inside the health sciences, one that includes the body, the memory, and the story. One student wrote, I thought my story had no place in science. I was wrong. My story is my science. A couple of weeks ago, in the last day of my current AutoEthnography class, a student said, AutoEthnography talks to marginalized people that come to academia. I'm happy for that. And just like that, our bodies have permission to dance. And just like that, AutoEthnography let us breathe again. Act 5, esperançar, the act of hope, hoping, according to Paulo Freire, a collective dance towards justice. In recent years, our work has deepened. We are using AutoEthnography to criticize the biomedical hegemony and the colonialism in health. We've used AutoEthnography to explore indigenous knowledge. We are uncovering why knowledge about medicinal plants, which comes from old women, folk healers, rural people, and quilombolas, is minimized or completely disregarded in the sciences. And we are choreographing new dances with that. We are re-educating our students with ancient but necessary knowledge. They are now able to smell and taste the plants that heal our people. We brought the plants back to pharmacy school. They're using plants as part of their arsenal to help to alleviate the pain and control patients' illness. We have used also ethnography to expose racism in health systems. Some of my students now are using autoethnography, but grounded in a theory and the writing of Conceição Evaristo, which is a Black woman that created many years ago, before autoethnography. We talked about ethnography. It's called escrevivência, writing about the lived. She's been doing that for decades now. So the students are using that as a way to amplify the voice of marginalized women. So these are Black students. And they also to transcend the Eurocentric and North American paradigms and prioritize the production of Black Brazilian women. These are words from my students' project. Autoethnography is amplifying the voice of students also living with chronic illness. For the first time, they talk about their own illness. Now I have a student with fibromyalgia who is studying her own experience with this condition. And autoethnography is doing a lot to me as well. Like it's helping me to look at my own practice, to inquire it, to theorize it, and find ways to improve it, with the goal to create more compassionate professional pharmacists and to understand myself in that environment as well. In the last few months, autoethnography is also giving me permission to reflect on and talk about my experiences going through menopause, a difficult rhythm to master as it emphasized the stage of a woman's life that seems to symbolize lack of youthfulness, lack of a future, lack and lack and lack. Autoethnography invites us to ask, who decides what counts as knowledge? And slowly, defiantly, joyfully, we've begun to change the rhythm of pharmacy education. We are building spaces where emotion is not a liability, but a gift, where pedagogy is liberating, where pharmacists are not just dispensers of drugs, but stewards of care. We are, in Freire's words, learning to esperançar, to hope with our feet, to resist with our steps, to transform our dance. Are we revolutionizing pharmacy? Maybe, but not with manifestos, just with chairs in circles, with questions that linger, with methods that remember. Coda, the invitation. So now, I invite you again. What choreography are you creating? Are you willing to lead and to follow? Are you open to moving differently? To letting go of the script? Because transformation doesn't always begin with a policy. Sometimes it begins with a circle of chairs. A student's tremble, a question without an answer, a body finally exhaling. And sometimes it begins with one step, then another, then another. Thank you so much for listening.
Wow, that was wonderful. It's a dance I want to learn. But I'm now going to introduce our second speaker, who is Caterpillar Professor and Chair of the Department of Communications at Bradley University. And much of Tony's work focuses on sexual diversity and queer concerns such as stigma, social support, self-disclosure. And in his first book, Narrating the Closet, he identified the struggles with disclosing same-gender attraction, often referred to as coming out of the closet. But I want to, and how I first was introduced to Tony was a long time before his 6 books were written, and he was co-editor of the Writing Live series and the 4 books that have been translated. And David and I, as fresh PhD students, traveled to the first Congress of Qualitative Inquiry in Champaign-Urbana, self-funding our way there, staying in cheap hotels, flying the grottiest, cheapest airline we could to get out there. And we loved it. We were blown away with the conference and the people that had made that journey. And some of you were at that first conference there in 2005. And after an exhausting day, I said to David, I'm going outside. I'm conferenced out. I'm going to miss the rest of the day. I need to sit in the sun. And David said, oh, I'm going to go and see this session here. And he said he went into a room like this, and he said he looked at the front, and there was a man in a Hawaiian shirt looking really healthy. And he said, this doesn't seem right. And he said, he can't be an academic, yes. And this man turned out to be Art Bochner, we found out much time later, who introduced one of his students, a young man, who did a performance that blew David's socks off and probably all his other clothes in the time as well in his head, just amazed at what transpired in that session. So much so that he ran out and found me and said, you've got to meet this guy, you've got to see this, you've got to read his work. Something is happening in that session and with that group of people. And he was right. It was amazing. And we have been nurtured and nourished in the 20 years from that performance to this day by your work and what you have done for your community. It's great. I can really make Tony be all emotional. Then I can say, no, carry on and do your keynote. That's what I'm going to do. But Tony, this is the work that you've been doing over the last 20 years. And it's the work that has been handed on to you by 2 of the most amazing people in autoethnography and in academia, who are joyful, who are electric, compassionate and passionate about this work and the community, of supporting all of you in the work that you do if they can't do it in person by their writing. And that's what you have done as well. And when I asked Tony to come and be a keynote, I didn't think that he would come in person either, and bring your lovely partner Jerry with you as well. So thank you so much. Can I ask you to give a big hand to Tony Adams, our second keynote speaker?
Thank you all for being. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you, David, Jamie, Trudy, Knut, all the conference organizers for making this event and the invitation to speak possible. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you online, folks. Great to see familiar faces there. And a special thank you to my lovely partner, Jerry, for making this trek with me. So. Today I want to share parts of a current project I'm calling Missing Each Other, Queer Tales of Love, Longing, and Loss. A note about content, I will reference sex, sexuality, bullying, grief, and suicide. I begin with a barista. In 2015, I stayed 5 nights in a hotel in the Grassmarket region of Edinburgh, Scotland. There was a cafe nearby, the Scooby-Doo Cafe, where I went every morning for coffee. On my first visit, the employee, who I perceived as male, greeted me enthusiastically. He made me feel like the cafe's first customer. He asked about my well-being and my travel, indeed common small talk, but his ability to engage and feign interest in me, superb. The next day, he greeted me similarly and asked if I wanted the same order as the day before. Impressive memory. He had a twinkle in his eye, difficult to describe with words. There was just something special about that eye contact. In he felt invested, intimate. That day, he wore a black t-shirt and jeans, and when he reached for a cup, his shirt lifted, revealing a beautiful tummy. He served my coffee and made more small talk. I returned 3 more mornings, and each time he greeted me like the first customer and a dear friend. After leaving Edinburgh, I found myself missing this man, his friendliness, his care, his attention. We never exchanged names, but if you asked me about a highlight from that trip, I would share this fleeting affair. I still think about this man. I wonder if he ever thought or still thinks about me. On a recent Google search, I noticed the cafe was still open, but I don't know if the man is still there. Again, I never learned his name. And beyond those eye twinkles, black t-shirt, jeans, and beautiful tummy, I've forgotten his other attributes. The significance of a coffee shop encounter, the mark of a stranger, the way he, with his attentiveness, made me feel special, wanted, worthy. Although he could have said more, I could have too, but I'm not sure what I would have said or why I would have said it. Thank you for the attention and a few days of kindness. I could try to find him, reintroduce myself, tell him this story, ask if he remembers me, a customer from nearly a decade ago. That seems creepy. We missed each other then by not exchanging names or engaging in talk less small, and sometimes I notice myself missing him now, wondering how he has lived, hoping that he has often felt and often feels like he made me feel special, wanted, worthy. In this project, I'm interested in the melancholic beauty and significance of everyday interpersonal affairs. I pay particular homage to those ephemeral encounters tinged with sexuality and desire that at the time may have felt inconsequential and meaningless, yet now formative and meaningful. Those lustful longings, those nostalgic adorations, blissful regrets, crossing paths with the delightful transient, bittersweet chance-like dealings, wistful encounters, interactions when at least one person yearned for more and may now wish they had acted and reacted otherwise. I show how people in interaction can change each other, sometimes, often, without ever knowing. I envision this project as a serious and central work about the generative potential of our mundane affairs, the consequentiality of communication, how we can change someone with our words and deeds, our very breaths, the productive and progressive beauty of being together. And you, dear audience, I invite you to reflect on moments when others marked you with their words and deeds, on those seemingly minor yet formative interactions which you now wish you would have acted and reacted otherwise, and about those times when someone may have taught you something wonderful about yourself. I invite you to reflect on the encounters that have shaped your life, encounters you carry across space and time, time, and yet about which the others may never learn or know of their significance. The stranger who with a mere smile or comment snapped you out of an anxious state. The bus rider or pub patron who complimented your scent, your shirt, your smile. The student who said you changed their life or whose life changed yours. The fleeting affairs and one-night stands, or the friend and the relative who paid you good mind and attention, but with whom you've lost contact. Dear audience, if you ever wonder about your legacy, if and how you have mattered, whether your life has value and purpose, I offer this project as evidence, a testament to the beauty and significance of our relational affairs. Sometimes we're lucky to learn when we've left a mark. Sometimes others may be too shy to say. Sometimes with time, others may forget us or our name if they ever knew it. Maybe they cannot find us. Maybe they have died. Maybe our paths will cross once again, and maybe we will fail to recognize each other. The others we've marked for whom we've mattered, missed telling us about our importance then when the encounter occurred, and they may miss us now if they're unable to tell us how we buoyed them, altered their life trajectory, offered sustenance when no one else could or would. So come with me on my words and on this exploration of communication, time, and desire. Come with me to honor those who have made it possible for us to survive. Come with me to acknowledge those who have allowed us to think gorgeously and gloriously about ourselves. Another encounter on that same trip at the university, after a talk at the University of Edinburgh. Upon leaving the building, a person who I perceived as male approached me in the alley. "I want you to have this," he said, as he handed me a copy of Body Remember, a book of poems by C.P. Cavafy, a Greek poet who lived from 1863 until 1933. Startled, I thanked the man. He rushed away. A few days later, when I opened the book on my return flight to Chicago, I noticed the inside cover had an inked message, handwritten in Greek. I assume the man who gifted me the book wrote the message, but I'm not sure. I asked a friend fluent in Greek to translate the inscription. "Our body is an endless cemetery of desires." In that night's lecture, eerily and appropriately, I talked about repressed sexuality, same-gender likes and loves, desires that age, waste away, or are buried, long forgotten, never realized, missed, all themes of Cavafy's work. Cavafy also described the consequentiality of our everyday in-person affairs. I never learned the stranger's name. I assume he attended my lecture, but I'm not sure. I asked my friend Jonathan Wyatt, who arranged the visit for the man's name. My friend thought he knew the name of the man, gave his name and his email address. I sent one email thanking him for the book. No reply. I wrote one more time. Again, no reply. Was this the correct person? Did he consider my message junk? Did he forget me, or was he just too shy or too busy to reply? I don't know. I think about how I only learned about Cavafy's work because of an unexpected encounter with a man in an alley who may have attended my lecture. If he did attend, why did he have a copy of that book then? He didn't know what I was going to say that night, and then decide to give it to me and disappear. Cavafy's work, a gift from this man, still informs my life and now our lives, today, here, and now. To miss someone, we must first recognize the consequentiality of communication. Our communicative tools, our words, our actions, gestures, tones, silences, bodies, our breaths, do things. They shape perceptions, convey information, inspire possibilities. We use language to help and to hurt, tear others down, make them feel good. We greet others, inquire about their lives, express praise, remind them of their beauty and worth, or we criticize them, tell them how they disappointed us, call them bad names, treat them as inadequate, dreadful, unworthy. We might offer a wink, a smile, or a thumbs up, or an eye roll, look of disgust, or the middle finger. We like, comment, and share social media posts, and we choose good and not so good terms to frame issues and situations. We apologize and ask for forgiveness at efforts to repair past mistakes. We might avoid interaction, refuse a call, not reply to a text, refrain from answering the door, passive attempts, silent treatments that consequentially may discourage further interaction. What we say and do, what we don't say and don't do can generate meanings, impressions, reactions. Our acts have consequences, are consequential for others and ourselves. There are also several ways to miss someone. There's the missing of we've missed the point, the purpose, the potential of an exchange, being misunderstood, possessing erroneous assumptions, misreading, or failing to read a cue or a clue. There's the missing of, I miss you, cherished feelings of absence, gratefulness for time together, remembering and adoring another's care, presence, and attention. And then there's the missing of time passing, as if we've missed out, we've missed our chance of not only missing meaningful signs at the time because of experience we didn't yet have, but also the opportunity to tell the other how they've mattered to us We may never have known them, or they might be dead, or it may be difficult to explain the significance of a crossed path. Missing each other is not just about ourself, but ourself in relation. When persons come into contact and leave a mark, when they experience the consequentiality of communication, the joy and melancholic residue of an encounter, those parting glances and what if regrets, desires to go back to the past to correct an error, enact a different act, a passion to relive the fleeting and fond affair, and yet we can't. One cannot step twice in the same relational river. Maybe I didn't start that project on that Edinburgh trip in 2015. Maybe I started when I published this article, Missing Each Other, in 2012. In that article, I described how my father and I missed each other with our words and our deeds. Me caretaking for him during his cancer surgery, him frequently making homophobic remarks, him asking to spend time with me telling him I'm too busy, me trying to talk to him about my queerness, him refusing to speak, we, us, the embodiment of Harry Chapin's song, Cats in the Cradle. He never had much time for me. Now I don't have much time for him. We seem to care for each other or care to think that we care, yet together we fumble, flail, don't say more, choose to say less. And such times have passed. We miss the chance to act and react otherwise. Maybe I started this project when I published the article Seeking Father in 2006. The first time I wrote about our relationship, when I described our missings as they related to his toxic straightness and my faggotry, a relationship unraveled by queerness. I remember thinking then, and still now, that maybe missing each other is our relational lot in life. But also, as I wondered then, and still now, maybe such missing indicates our care for each other. Maybe missing each other best describes us. I published Seeking Father a few months after Brett, an ex-boyfriend and close friend, died suddenly 6 months before his 30th birthday, either from diabetic shock or from suicide after coming out to his father. Brett was there when I came out to my father. Brett supported me, and I never thanked him. I never thanked him for championing my early disclosures of queerness, especially to family, many of whom reacted poorly. And I never thanked him for teaching marijuana, intimacy, pleasure, for introducing me to queer icons like Katie Lang and Gus Van Sant, and to queer texts like the Judy Garland Show and Steel Magnolias. I miss being able to tell Brett how grateful I am for having met him, grateful for his love of young queer me. I can think of other starts to this project, such as those lovely queer men I met once I began to identify as queer in August 2001. I knew some of these men only for one night, some several months, some a few years. Oh, these men, such fun they were. They lavished me with time and attention, cared for me when my family of origin failed, and like Brett, taught me about queer icons, David Bowie, Madonna, and queer texts like Queer as Folk and the Broken Hearts Club. These men sustained me, made me want to live, used their words and deeds to care for my fledgling queer self, and as evidenced by a few of their committed friendships with me, staunch loyalty and forgiveness. Oh, these men so good to me, but I wasn't so good to them. I lived selfishly, chasing dreams and desires that didn't include them. In my selfishness, I missed these men then, and I miss them now. To paraphrase Leonard Cohen's Thanks for the Dance, I may have been hell. They were indeed swell, and I hope they too had fun. Maybe this project started a few months before my coming out in March 2001 when I posted a photo-less profile on the Man for Man section of Yahoo Personals. There, I arranged for my first date with a man. Even though we were both nervous about being coded as queer, we met in public for dinner and drinks. Although we were not compatible as boyfriends, the meeting was formative. We stayed friends. And in a few years, I would date one of his close friends, another beautiful man I didn't treat too well, and who, nearly a decade later, designed the cover for my first book. I could go back further to my anti-teenage, anti-queer rants, moments when I disdained and distanced myself from queerness and tried to convince others and myself of a flailing heterosexuality. I called others that F word, told homophobic jokes, laughed at deviant desires and suicides. Secretly, I envied those I mocked. I wanted to be like them. I yearn for painted nails, long hair, biting wit, a graceful gait, a courageous, queer confidence I'm still not sure I know. The others I mocked were my early muses, the tough ones exposed to everyday ridicule from people like me. They were brave and resilient. I was not. I miss connecting with these others then, and I miss them now as I remember them fondly and often. If they're still alive, I'm sorry. They taught me much, and I hope they have lived or are living their best lives. Alongside such mocking were the numerous trysts I had in high school with cis male peers. I bullied femboys by day. By night, I experimented sexually with the mask boys, jocks, the popular dudes. There were others like me. We merely feared becoming known, visible, legible. Or maybe this project started earlier in my youth with the strong women who made me feel special, wanted, worthy, who told me I could be whatever I wanted, who allowed me to play with stickers and beads and necklaces. They baked me fresh apple pies and assured me that movie theater popcorn was healthy, proclaimed it was wonderful to be husky. Likely unbeknownst to them, they too introduced me to queer icons, Dolly Parton, and Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and texts like the Golden Girls and Thelma and Louise. I never told these women how strong I found them to be, never thanked them for the comfort and safety they offered a young budding queer. I miss them then by not recognizing their significance. I miss them now as these moments and many of these others have long passed. I imagine countless other starts to this project, the people I've forgotten, didn't know well, only learned about in passing, never heard of at all, the queers who died for the love that dare not speak its name, who have inspired my desires and my relationships, and who with their lives gifted us a safer public, comfortably queer self. Those ridiculed, disowned, cast aside queers who suffered religious persecution, suffocating heteronormativity, estranged families of origin, or who were castrated, shocked, lobotomized, victimized by conversion therapy, and who subsequently killed themselves after receiving such ignorant cures for homosexuality, or who were arrested for sodomy or killed by anti-queer others, or who had never had access to appropriate and sustained medical care, or if they did, were forced to entrust homophobic and transphobic doctors with their bodies and lives, those coming outs that didn't happen, the pleasures cut too soon, the experiences of being proudly queer and love for it. I miss the others I missed and who missed so much, lives compromised by hate. Why are missed encounters important? 3 reasons. First, the everydayness and ephemerality of some of these encounters makes their significance easy to miss, and the moments I describe are often assumed to be unremarkable, inconsequential, difficult to capture, and thereby neglected and missed in formal discussions, studies, archives. But these encounters were quite remarkable and consequential. Bear witness. Second, the concept of missing pays homage to others who occupy our everyday imaginaries, those we still recall, possibly fondly, who paid us good mind and attention, made us feel special, wanted, and worthy, cultivated resilience, allowed us to survive. The others we remember, maybe even invoke when we write, speak, move, breathe, live, love, when we smell a certain scent or hear a particular song. Third, when we realize our relational affairs can generate possibilities and beauty marks, recognize the potential iterative and compounding impact of what we do and don't do, say and don't say, we can, as artist Sophie Blackall writes, become bolder, braver, more spontaneous with our communicative acts. Bolder, braver, more spontaneous on our efforts to create more affirming relations and worlds. As a child, Jackie, one of your mother's former teachers, often took care of you. You adored Jackie. She made you feel that special, wanted, and worthy. She offered reprieve from a chaotic family of origin. She allowed you to collect stickers, beads, and necklaces, atypical interests of a boy in your area. Jackie also enjoyed crocheting, and in 2010, crocheted a blanket for you and your husband. He uses it most nights. You loved visiting Jackie's house. She had a massive collection of toys and games, a grand library of books, several grumpy wiener dogs, and a piano that no one in her family played. You often spent hours tinkering with the keys. When you were 6, Jackie encouraged your parents to get you a piano. And they did. Well, not a piano, but a small electric keyboard and some piano lessons. At 8, you played Whitney Houston's Greatest Love of All for a recital. You were terrible, but Jackie said you did great. At 11, you began playing the trumpet and regularly played for concerts, masses, and various competitions. At 18, during the last year of high school, your music teacher didn't think you were good enough to play piano or trumpet in college. Although disheartening to hear, she was likely right. And so you quit making music until years later. You started graduate school. You began learning how to write and fell in love with a different keyboard. Now, when you write, when you type, you feel as though you are back at Jackie's tinkering with that piano, click, 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 assembling notes, letters, reciting the words as they appear on the screen. At 22, when you began to identify as queer, you feared telling Jackie. You didn't have a reason to fear her. She never made cruel remarks, but you didn't want to disappoint her. I'm queer, you said. Sorry I didn't tell you sooner. Worried about your reaction. I love you, she said. I'm sorry you worried. Thank you for telling me. Her calm tone gave you the sense that she probably sensed your queerness for years. At 44, you met Jackie for lunch. She had recently been diagnosed with cancer, and at 89, didn't want surgery or chemotherapy. You sensed this might be the last time you see her alive. You sensed that she sensed so too. Motive project. You wanted to make sure you attended to her as best you could. You didn't want to miss the chance to do so. After lunch, you walked her to her car, stared into her eyes, and told her you loved her. You be a good boy, she said, staring back, tears forming. I will, he replied. I'll be a good boy. In a few weeks, Jackie would be admitted to the hospital for a kidney issue. You visited her a few times. Some days she would be coherent. Other days she didn't make much sense. On one visit, when you entered the room, her face lit up. She smiled and gave you a wink. A thank you for coming to see me wink. A wink that suggested, sorry, I'm sick. And I know what's happening, and you know too, wink. One that continued the you be a good boy scene a few weeks prior. You sensed that she was failing, and now here she was, weeks later, with a wink that may have also meant, I told you so. You grabbed her hand and said, Jackie, I think of you all the time. You made me feel safe when I was young. You introduced me to music, and even though I quit playing piano and trumpet years ago, for the past 2 decades, I have made music when I type, when I write. I feel like I'm at your piano again, tinkering with those keys, creating rhythms and refrains. I practice every day just as a musician would, and I'm often happiest when I write. You gifted me music, writing, happiness. Thank you. I'm proud of you, she said, followed by a wink. Jackie is still alive, living independently at 91. The cancer is still there. Last summer, you thanked her for allowing you to make music. You didn't know what telling her what she meant to you did for her, but you made sure to tell her again about how her existence informs your existence, and now, dear audience, your existence. You think of Jackie with every key you push, every letter you type, every word you speak, every song you sing. She gifted you care, curiosity, creativity, and even though you missed realizing it at the time. So, dear audience, I ask you to reflect on moments when others have marked you with their words and deeds, on those seemingly minor yet formative interactions in which you wish you would have acted and reacted otherwise, those times when someone else taught you something wonderful about yourself. Reflect on encounters that have shaped your life and encounters you carry across space and time, lifetime, yet about which the other may never know or learn of their significance. That stranger who, with a mere smile or comment, snapped you out of an anxious state, the bus rider or pub patron who complimented your scent, your shirt, your smile, the student whose life you changed or whose life changed yours, the fleeting affairs and one-night stands, the friend or relative who paid you good-minded attention but with whom you've lost contact, the barista who offered 5 days of kindness, the stranger in the alley who presents a gift, the Jackies in our lives. And again, dear audience, If you ever wonder about your legacy, if and how you have mattered, what if your value has, whether your life has value and purpose, I offer these stories as evidence, a testament to the beauty and significance of our communicative affairs. Sometimes we're lucky to learn when we've left a mark. You told me today. Sometimes others may be too shy to say. Sometimes with time, others may forget us and our name if they ever knew it. Maybe they have died. Maybe our paths will cross again, and maybe we will fail to recognize each other. The others we've marked for whom we've mattered may have missed telling us about our importance then when the encounter occurred, and they may miss us now if they don't know or cannot find us. So go forth and be missed. Use your communicative tools, those words, actions, gestures, tones, silences, bodies, breaths to do things, to move people, to cultivate ideas, to create alliances, promote good change, embrace those small ephemeral acts, dwell in their potential to cultivate affirming futures. Recognize and if desired, offer gratitude to those who have made it possible for you, for us to survive, to be here now, and who have allowed you and us to think gorgeously and gloriously about ourselves. Thank you.
I'd like to thank both of our keynotes for just really, really powerful, energetic, wonderful messages that we can really build on and take something for. And I'm really aware in the process of that, and Candice just passed me some messages from our friends online. And we have a whole host of people, 24 of you online with us today. I want you to look at these people from all over the world who have joined us today, and we're saying hello to you. And we're going to be able to carry on the conversation later on, but we're not going to be able to hear from you guys online later on when we go in the garden. And we know some of you are in your houses on your own. And I always feel when I'm in that position and on my own at home and the conference ends, it's kind of a really weird space and you want to say something or you want to miss someone, you know something else is going on. And I see on that screen so many of my friends, Brian Keith Alexander, Christopher Poulos, Landa Love, Elise Pinot, Gail Leatherby, Carolyn Ellis, Art Botner, people I don't know as well who have joined in these sessions for the first time. And I felt it would be really lovely if any of you would just like to say a few words. We have to leave the building quite shortly, but we would love to hear from you to take that with us. We don't want to miss this opportunity. So put a hand up. Candice will do her best to keep up with the hands, and we'll try and make space for any of you to say anything that you would like to in these few minutes closing. So Bryant, you seem to be pinned already. And your hand was up in the last session. So do you want to just take us away with any reflections or thoughts before we go around the rest of the room online?
Oh, my dear friends, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is what I wrote, and I'm going to literally put it in the box right now. I am overwhelmed by the wonder and the beauty of our two presenters who take us on a journey back to ourselves and back to the power of autoethnography. And so congratulations, and how beautiful you are, how wonderful you are. Thank you. Thank you. You're a gift.
Thank you, Brian. That's lovely. On our screens right next to Brian, we've got Christopher Poulos from North Carolina or South Carolina. I get it muddled up. Sorry, Chris.
It's the North one. Hey, everybody. It's so good to see you. I'm so wishing I was in the room with you today, like Bryant and I were last year. It's a beautiful space. And thank you, Djenane. We've had this conversation before. I think you're doing radical revolutionary pharmacy, and I love what you're doing. And Tony, I will be approaching every encounter for the rest of, I don't know how long, very differently after listening to you today. So I love what you've done here. great keynotes. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Elise Pinot,
Yep.
the floor is yours, my darling.
In one sense, I'm rendered speechless. These were two stunning, stunning keynotes, real specific to both. I know both of you, have known you, some for some time, have heard some of your stories, and yet all the things that I have missed about you, these two incredibly rich performances. Djenane, you brought me inside your classroom, and I felt as if I were a young pharmacy student, for God's sake. What that revolution might have meant, that home place. And you and I have talked about your work, but this was an opening of your world in a way that I thought was just stunning, that I would have missed otherwise. I'm going to get really teary because, Tony, I've known you since you were young. And to hear some of these people and these moments. And I just want to say how meaningful it was that you brought back Brett, a person that we both know that I have not thought of for a long time. And you brought him back to life for me in a real kind of connection. And so my heart feels very moved about that. And I will be thinking about all the ways in which everyday moments with people can transform their lives, right? How gracious of you to remind us of that, to reflect upon the moments of transformation that happen in those little wrinkles in time. Thank you both so, so much.
Thank you, Elise. Thank you. There's a couple of minutes if anyone else online would like just to say hello to everybody. Caroline and Art, I see you up in the top right-hand corners of our screen. Hello. We know you're there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, I just want to say hello to everyone. It's wonderful to be here. I wish I were there, but I'm here at least, and seeing all of you and hearing all of you. And those two presentations were just spectacular. They really were just amazing. And I was very happy to hear Giovanni and to meet you. I've read your work, but it was lovely to be with you in your classroom and with everything that you're doing, which is just amazing. And I'm going to look at my pharmacist differently when I go in now and say, hey, can you come and be in my space with me instead of just talking about what's in the bottle? And Tony, I adore you, of course, and I've watched you work on this presentation for a long time and this work, and it is just amazing. And I love where you've come with it, and I'm so proud of you. So thank you, Katrina and David and everyone who's put this together and made this happen and introduced these two people and their work to this group there and online. And just amazing, just amazing. Thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. That's really lovely. Art, do you want to just say hello?
Hello, everybody. Tony, to me, you're forever young, incapable of aging. It's great to see all your faces. Thank you for a delightful morning here, late afternoon there. I wish I could be there. I miss the presence of a in-live forum conference. And I wish all of you a beautiful evening and looking forward to a great day tomorrow as well. Thank you for doing this. I'm touched by all of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Art. Thanks. There's just a lovely array of hearts going up the screen there. James, you had your hand up. I just saw a moment
Yes,
ago.
I did. This is my first time to this conference. And first of all, thank you for the virtual option because for those who live in other countries, it can be expensive to travel, as you know, especially if they're paying out of pocket as an independent scholar. Our universities just don't want to, pay it forward, so to speak. Um, I've only known Tony for a little. I guess we've only interacted the last few years, but like you can kind of feel his warmth even through emails. And I, I finished my PhD in communication in May of 2024 at the University of Tennessee, and the qualitative researchers kind of speak reverently of him. He's kind of like the godfather of, some of these
The
methods that we
Godfather.
study about. Not to put too much, not to make you too embarrassed, but I really liked your presentation because it does remind to show kindness to everyone we encounter every single day. And I think it's really easy to go through the motions when we're ordering coffee or on a customer service call to just kind of go about our way and think, how can this person serve me? What can they do for me? Other than kind of flipping it around where a kind word might actually make their day feel better. So it's almost like serving the other person versus looking at them to serve you. And so I think that that's a great takeaway from an autoethnography, faculty body, because I think that all of the presentations are so personal that there's even like kindness extended through them. And I'm hoping, Tony, you'll come down and see us in the South at Southern States Communication Association in Birmingham, Alabama, not the UK, sometime soon. But I was in Scotland last summer and I was like, man, I could have totally just like made a stop over to this conference. But now that I know, I'm like, I gotta go find this coffee shop on the Royal Mile because I didn't see the Scooby Doo coffee shop or whatever. But anyway, but thank you for having me. It's been a real special treat. And if I missed some of those like 2, 3 a.m. workshops, I apologize. But it's just been a real treat. Thank you.
Thank you, James, and thank you all. It's really special that you bothered to join online, and I know how difficult it is trying to. Brian said he always gets the times wrong and asked me about them, and I always get the times wrong when I'm joining from other time zones. So we know how difficult it is to work out what the time in the UK is, and then organise your life around it. But we really appreciate it. Seeing your faces on the screen makes a real difference to us here. So thank you all. And I hope that your hearts will be warmed this evening as you go around the other duties and things that you're doing, and you'll remember us and we'll be thinking of you. So thank you, and good afternoon, evening, morning, whatever time zone it is there. And thank you to all of you, and we'll adjourn to the garden.